Okay, state function. A state function is a thermodynamic property whose value depends only on the initial and final state of the system and not on the part delta x equal to x finals minus x initial. Or state function is a thermodynamic property that depends only on state of a system and not on the part taken to reach the state. For example, pressure, volume, temperature, internal energy, entropy gives free energy. What do you mean when you say internal energy is the state function? When we say the internal energy is a state function, it means that the change in internal energy of a system depends only on its initial and final states and not on the specific part taken to get from the initial state to the final state. When we say internal energy is the state function, it means that the change in internal energy of a system depends only on its initial and final states and not on the specific part taken to get from initial state to the final state. In thermodynamics, a state function or function of state is a property of a system that depends only on the current state of the system defined by its thermodynamic variables like temperature, pressure, and volume. In thermodynamics, the state function is a property of system that depends only on the current state of the system defined by thermodynamic variables, temperature, pressure, and volume. Part independence. If a system moves from an initial state, state 1 to the final state, state 2, the change in internal energy will be the same regardless of whether the process involved slow heating, rapid compression, or any combination of change delta U2 minus U1. Irrelevant part, it does not matter how the change occurred. For example, how much heat was added or how much work was done. Only the properties temperature, pressure, volume of the starting and ending points of the matter. It does not matter how the change occurred. For example, how much heat was added or how much work was done. Only the properties like temperature, pressure, volume of the starting and ending points matter. Cyclic process or any cyclic process where the system returns to its initial state, the net change in the internal energy is zero, that is delta U equal to zero. Contrast with part function, internal energy U is a state function, unlike the heat and work, which are the part function. Internal energy is a state function, unlike the heat and work are the part function. Part function depends on the way the process is carried out. The amount of heat absorbed or work done by a system moving between the two states will be different if the process part is changed. The internal energy of a system like temperature, pressure, volume, etc. is determined by the state of system and independent of the part by which it is obtained. Hence, internal energy of system is the state function. The internal energy of a system like temperature, pressure, volume, etc. determined by the state of the system and independent of the parts. The internal energy of the system like temperature, pressure, volume, etc. is determined by the state of the system and independent of the part which it is obtained. Hence, internal energy of system is state function.